517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
This is the Star Wars Squadrons podcast, Season 2, Episode 1. We are back after a little bit of a hiatus, kind of figuring out the new gear. I'm excited to be back. I don't know if you guys are playing Squadron. We got 3 viewers in there. Thank you for coming to check out the first live one as we relaunch. So, Squadrons is kind of getting, I don't want to say to the end game, but we're getting to the end of support from Motive. And there was a post on Reddit last week that kind of highlighted all the issues, and it's sort of a prayer. And I got the man who made the post on this week. Rain, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, sorry, say that one more time.
I said you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on, Rain. I remember, actually, I don't know if you'll remember this at all. It was just before the first Cal Cup. I was, just doing some searching, and we actually played together against the Cavern Angels too, right before. Do you remember this at all?
I remember playing with you. I don't remember that particular match. How did it go?
It was funny because I don't think you didn't know I was doing the pod or whatever. I remember talking. I was just, anytime I kind of come across someone who's solid, I do kind of make mental note. I smoke enough that I really forget most things, but I did remember you, and you're a solid player, and that's why I've seen any posts you made, and this one, it was really nailed all the issues and kind of put it into a form to be submitted to EA Help to let them know about the issues in a concise way. So why don't you tell us about that post and what led you to make it?
Yeah, so there's a number of issues in the game that the devs have said that can only be fixed with a full client-side patch. And of course, the problem we all know is that they're done making full client-side patches, and all the updates we've been getting over the last few months have just been server-side only, mostly just stat changes to the ships and whatnot. So I saw a lot of energy being directed at Charlemagne on Discord, like, hey, Charlemagne, come on, can we get a real patch? And a lot of just kind of people hanging their heads like, that's it. But I didn't see any kind of coordinated effort or any kind of effort really to pressure EA to really put some resources back into this game for a full patch. And so I just took some time when I got little breaks at work, and compiling all these issues wasn't really that hard because I played this game pretty regularly. A lot of these issues have been well documented and probably better documented than I have. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty easy to find YouTube videos. I pulled a couple from your channel actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I put together the post and I figured, it can't hurt. EA does have this customer feedback form. There is a bug reporting feature on their website. I'm like, let's put it to use.
Yeah.
And maybe if we make enough noise as a community, something can get done. Maybe not, but I figured it can't hurt.
I mean, there's 500 to 1,000 competitive players minimum who should be all submitting this, I think. Like I told you before, even the most skeptical of people on my squad are putting it in. And I was like, yeah, this is a thing that just needs few more eyes on it, so I wanted to have you on, and we'll go through it here. I should ask you, how did you get into Star Wars Squadrons? Did you play flight sim games in the past, Star Wars games?
Yeah, a long history with Star Wars flight games. I think the first one I ever played was first flight sim game, space flight sim game was probably Wing Commander 2. It's one of the first PC games I ever played when we first got our PC back in, I'm going to date myself, like 96. Something like that, yeah. 97.
Hey, I'm the same thing for me too, but about then when we got ours.
Right, and actually I think so. It must have been when I was entering middle school. I remember 5th grade going to middle school. Anyway, I got we got a joystick, and my grades just kind of plummeted that next year after playing Wing Commander. And then I got Rebel Assault with the sweet real life cinematics with actors and everything. And then the first real flight Star Wars game was TIE Fighter, and I thought that was just an incredible game. And I think it must have been some re-release edition. So I missed the original X-Wing as a little too young for that. I played all the rest of the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games through X-Wing Alliance. Then got into Rogue Squadron 64. I got all the Rogue Squadron games on GameCube. and then then the Battlefront games, both the original ones and the 2015 and 2017 one. Played a lot of Star Trek flight games too. They had basically what was capital ship flight combat games back in the 90s. One was Starfleet Academy, one was Klingon Academy, which pretty same concept as Squadrons, except you're moving these big ships instead of the little nimble starfighters.
That's really cool. I mean, there's a lot of room for that too. I'm surprised there hasn't been more of a Battlestar Galactica game too in that range as well.
There has been, actually. I played one, I think it came out in 2003, right before the reboot series came out, Battlestar Galactica, and it was simply called Battlestar Galactica. It was on PS2. I think people called it a Colony Wars clone, but that was actually a really fun, solid game. And yeah, I believe it was third-person perspective. So kind of like Rogue Squadron, kind of like Sqaudrons.
Yeah. Are you playing on sticks? Are you a controller then?
So I play on. I first started playing on PlayStation 4. I've been lucky enough to secure a PlayStation 5. It's got that little graphics update. And I play on a HOTAS. So the one compatible. Actually, there's two compatible HOTASes for the PlayStation.
Right.
But I'm playing on the T-Flight 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my second unit because it is not the most reliable piece of equipment you can buy. But through some customer support, I was able to get a new stick. My first one. Yeah, after 2 weeks, it started drifting on the yaw axis.
Oh, I mean, I have one too for the Xbox. I haven't really put in the time yet to learn. I do it as like a hobby, I guess, basically on the side. Like I'm just doing the story mode with it and kind of learning. The thing I find different is I'm not really learning how to play flight sims. I'm learning how to play Star Wars Squadrons with a flight stick, which is different, kind of, right? Like.
Right. Well, it took me a good 2 weeks to get used to it because I first started playing with the DualShock, and HOTASes are pretty hard to find nowadays. So that's a $80 stick that you can't really find brand new at retail price. I think it's going for like 150 to 200.
Literally, these came on stock, and I got it. I ordered this the day it came out on Amazon. Like I just happened to look, and I've been looking around for that week or two, and they just happened to come out, and I grabbed them. I don't wonder if they're still available. I don't even know actually if they are now because it just
no.
Yeah, no, it was just that whatever a little bit. Yeah.
They're not. I gifted one to my brother for his birthday, but that was hard to do. But I'll tell you what, though, if you put in the time to make that transition, it's completely worth it.
Yeah.
I love playing on the stick. I cannot play on the gamepad really ever again.
Yeah, it would just change. I mean, that's the thing too. I can't going back and forth would probably be kind of a little bit difficult once you start to play. That's why I don't want to switch from controller because I'm playing at a certain level there. So then once it went the other way, yeah, it would be hard to switch back and forth. I feel like. Right.
Well, if you ever get around to it and have the time, yeah, the immersion factor alone is well worth it. And I feel like my flight mechanics, and especially with drifting and boosting, got a lot easier for me when I made the switch. Now that was before everyone started switching their boost button to L2.
Yeah, that's all. Well, I mean, which actually we could we'll get into one of those issues right there. So actually, let's kind of start to talk about the issues that we saw here that you kind of highlighted. Yeah. We're gonna go through each one on this episode and kind of just talk about them a bit. So the first one here, and I feel like we said it, but they can see the email up right here. I have it in the video, or not the email, the template for the email in the Reddit post. Mm-hmm. This is all copy pastable for anyone to take in and submit to EA through the links provided there. Just wanted to make that very clear for everyone. So the first point here, we're going to talk about Pinball Movement. Fenkar, I think in one of his biggest videos about movement in Squadrons, kind of talked about pinballing as gasping, or I think even shunt charging, the way that people move around there. It's just those quick movements that are so evasive and tough to follow, especially for a new player. How would you describe pinballing? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a pretty good description. This one I actually struggled with in terms of, should I even make this a separate thing? Because pinball movement to me is a symptom of some other problems.
You're right. Yeah, it is. It's the combination of skipping, gasping, the shunt charging, like all these different quick power movements to have I don't want to say near infinite boost at your disposal.
Right. So yeah, the Empire ships that can shunt, they can have pretty much overcharged lasers or a full tank of boost on command
Hmm.
if they manage their power right. And gas being on the ships that have the 3 power systems, the New Republic ships and Defender and supports, yeah, they can just keep putting power back in the boost. But the pinball movement's exactly what you described. It's evasive movement, at its and that's why it's used so widely.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if I consider myself a true comp player, right? But I did play in the Cal Cup. I flew with Cavern Angels Blue, um, and full disclosure, I used some of these tactics. We'll get into multi-drifting later. I can't use multi-drifting
Hmm.
because I'm on console, but yeah, you got to use pinball movement if you want to live
I mean,
in
yeah,
the
it's
game.
exactly. And that's what it kind of comes down to. There's a thing where it's like, is it an exploit? Is it the game? Is it the game now? We'll kind of talk about these things. And another, sorry, I noticed I missed a main post. It's actually something that a lot of players do, and I think it kind of separates a lot of players, is the zero throttle boost acceleration. I skipped over that one. It's players. I mean, myself, I have my controller, my throttle set up to be 0 or 100. That's it. That's all I use, right? So I'm basically at 0 all the time. Or I mean, on Empire, I'm never at 100. On New Republic, I'm only at 100s because I'm recharging my engines and I want to be just moving fast as I can be at that point, but then back to 0 pretty quickly. So yeah, zero throttle, it's an issue. And just like you're saying, you have to use these tactics in competitive play. You basically have to be at 0 throttle in competitive play.
Right, and so to expand on that,
Mhm.
right? So the under throttle boost acceleration or zero throttling, right? So
Mhm.
the way somebody found a loophole. I guess it was Fenkar. I don't know. Somebody smarter
Mhm.
than me figured out that you can make your ship go to almost instantaneously to its top boosting speed when your throttle is set to 0 or underneath your current speed. So that's why
That's
I called
correct.
it
Yeah.
under throttle boosting.
Hmm.
That doesn't seem to really make a lot of sense either in game or in universe. But basically, what you have at the high level play is players with the throttle set to 0,
Hmm.
and then they can instantaneously, within a second or two, reach their top speed. And it just creates these short, jerky movements that kind of make it look like a drunken bee in space.
Yeah, it's so hard to
and
track
that's what creates that
because
pinball movement.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. So it's like it's one of the main factors that leads to this pinball movement being so hard because they're going from
Yes.
turning in this one area to quickly this next one, the turning. It's just so hard to track that way.
Exactly. So different ships have different ways to pinball.
Mhm.
But when I say pinballing, to me, it's the short, jerky movements, the zigzagging. That makes it, and what it does, the problem that creates is that it makes these players using these tactics extremely hard to kill, and that's why I think in the high level metal you see so little player killing, because it's just not worth it to shoot the players using these techniques to their full advantage.
It's like, how do people get killed? They're beaconed and tractor beamed. They're getting close range ion disabled and shot down, which I call dunking. Usually, they get dunked and
Right.
finished. Right, like those are the two main ways that people are getting killed now. Like just you can't really like dumbfire Goliath near a thing that hits a bomber or something. Right, like just that kind of stuff. It's pretty ridiculous, and it's because of the pinball movement that has led to this in the game now. I think because of it.
Right, and
go ahead, sorry.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
No.
I was going to say, so one of the pioneers, shall we say, of pinball movement was Shazam Powers, who even said that, like, I don't really want to be playing this way.
Mhm.
I've seen him post in Discord and Reddit, right? But but he's going to do it because that's what it takes to win, and it gives him a big advantage. And I think,
Yeah.
and to kind of go back to when doing this post, I was like, it's not going to be possible to really get unanimous consent on all of these things are issues and all of these things, we all agree should be fixed. But I feel like this is one thing, the pinball movement and under throttle boosting, that, yeah, it'd be nice if that were fixed. I feel like most of the player base would agree with that.
So I think your explanation of it too is really good. That quick move, and I think too, because I've always thought of it like a pinball, like moving through the pinball machine, hitting the different things very quickly, bouncing off of them, like that, like those zigzag movements. But then it's space, so you've also got that happening in 360 degrees in all directions around you. Like, it's just, there's just so many planes and accesses that are going to happen. It's
Right.
very difficult to finish someone.
And then one of the consequences of that, right, is that you have these ships that shouldn't be that maneuverable, say the TIE bomber with reinforced hull. And using these techniques and other techniques, you can basically bypass the maneuverability penalty that should come with having such a tanky build. Because a TIE bomber with reinforced hull can still be really agile as long as you under throttle boost and use pinball movement. And that seems to me to kind of stray from the intention of the developers.
And I think a big part with the pinball movement, another aspect of it that makes it so tough is, like you kind of hinted at earlier, the multi-drifting, which is basically on PC, players will use software to rebind the controls, because the in-game mapping is actually broken. Since the beginning of the year, you can't bind boost and drift to separate keys, so people will use different remapping software where either they'll be using a keyboard or the throttle and stick will act like keyboard, so you can get the command to be specific, so drift can be separated that way. And what that creates is a couple issues. One is multi-drifting. By spamming the drift key when it's separated, you get more drifts, which allows you to refill your boost tank while you're drifting, as well as make crazy extra drifts. And then there's a weird thing that seems to happen with the shunt charging too, where we won't be able to drift if you boost too quickly. And I think it is a symptom of the boost and drift being on the same key. Although I've heard different things from people, so that might not be the case. But yeah, something else I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I didn't think about that last point, but that's probably true. A symptom of that. So yeah, that's that's definitely a strange one where you appear to have the option to rebind boost and drift on separate buttons, or no matter what platform you're using, but in reality you can't. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head with multi-drifting, and that just makes it really hard to to kill anyone using that, because with one boost activation they can get multiple drifts, and clearly the intent was one boost activation, one drift. So to me, this is probably the most egregious bug on the list, because it so clearly deviates from the intention of the devs. And then there's the fact that, like you said, only PC players can access this technology. So straight up, this puts console players at a severe disadvantage.
When I saw this video, like when Fenkar posted this video, I remember just being like, well, I guess I'm done with competitive play then. Was like my initial reaction was just like, well, okay, putting down the controller then. I mean, and it seems so game breaking. I think where it's most game breaking is for the support ships.
Right, because nowadays you can see supports just doing these loops, looking like a leaf in the wind over top your flagship, and it's almost like they're just laughing in your face as they do it. So if you can get the ion missile lock and dunk it, then that's one way to do it. But it takes a lot of effort, and then with the way that thing bounces, right, it'll bounce right out of your targeting reticle. So good luck getting the missile lock to begin with.
I've been messing around with some people just doing more dogfights lately, practicing my dunks, and it is so hard against the support players when they're really good at it. They'll use Scrambler Hall as well to just make it even, you know what I mean, just extra difficult to log on them. It just, it gets pretty wild out there to get those logs. It's not even worth your time almost, which is crazy. Like,
right.
I mean, it is basically killing the support player, especially if they're doing like resupplies, is key to winning. I think pretty much taking out that support player.
Right. And then like they just walk up to your flagship and mark it, and they're like, try and stop me. And then if you spend too much time shooting that support player, well, here come their objective players like streaming in on your shield gens, and what are you going to do about it? And so again, that's another reason why the high level meta, so to speak, is so it's a damage race as opposed to PvP. And so I could probably go on a big tangent about where I'd like the meta to go, but that's kind of...
We'll save that for the end.
Yeah. But multi-drifting in itself, I think, is something that I would guess near 100% of the community agrees needs to go.
And I think they do. Everyone sees that, and they see that I think it can be resolved easily by so it can go two ways. You can either remove multi-drift, or they can give us some sort of... Or they could give it to everyone basically on PC and console by fixing the mapping to the separate buttons, which may not even be possible. I don't know. Like, I don't know about code well enough. That might not even be realistic for them to fix that. So,
and I would really hope it's more of the former than the latter, because I don't think, because then you're just like, you're creating an arms race, and then you're just going to make it so nobody can kill each other. And as a console player, I really don't want access to that tech. I'd rather just see it removed.
Yeah,
and even if I did, I don't know if I would use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the point right now where I think in competitive play, your support player has to have multi-drift. Like, it's just
right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just basic. I mean, current meta, it seems that way anyway. Perhaps I'm wrong.
If you want to go far, to kind of pump my own brakes or pump my own tires a bit, I should say. Cavern Angels Blue, the squad I flew in. We made it to day 2 in the spring minor without using multi-drifting. We use Pinball Movement, but everyone has to do that. But do we have any aspirations about winning the whole thing? No. At the end of the day, we're not going to beat the Randalorians. We're not even going to beat Cheese Sqaudron. We're not beating Splinter. But we got in there and made a little noise, so you can get decently far in a comp scene without using it.
You're right. There's definitely, I mean, pretty much team play and strategy will almost always trump those things, the exploits, I think. In this game anyway, that's what I'm seeing. I mean, it's a team who's got the exploits, strategy, and team play, I guess, is going to win it all. But quote unquote exploits.
I 1,000% agree with that. And having gone up against like some of the better players in the world, like from Splinter and Randalorians, those dudes are going to beat our team any day of the week, no matter if they have access to these techs or not. It just makes it, to me, it just creates even further separation. But with the amount of time those guys put into the game, the amount of practice, the amount of raw skill, the thought they put into their strategies, that will always win the day. And so I in kind of making noise about these issues in some Discord, some players accuse of, you're just sour about losing. I'm like, no. But I really don't think blame my losses on that.
Yeah, I really don't think it comes across that way at all. I don't think it comes across as sour. I think it's more like it's factual. It's like this is what it is. This is the game, really. These things, and
right.
I mean, even taking a look at like the next point, like torpedoes doing variable damage, disappearing, visual glitches, or clipping through entities. I like that. Entities. Yeah. I mean, that has been an issue. I believe we've all know. I think it's probably been an issue since day 1. I know once the piercing torpedoes were added, we noticed it. I mean,
yes.
When it was the torpedo meta, basically up until that first Cal Cup, everyone was running torpedo until Chaff kind of like took over and like stop that. It was so annoying because you knew that you did it basically a perfect sloop, but you just didn't know where the torpedoes were going to hit or not. There was this weird registration.
Right, the piercing torpedoes will sometimes pierce through the shield and they go out the other side. You're like, well, I guess it pierced it. I think with the piercing torpedoes, there's actually an issue where it's more it hits more consistently as long as you fire outside the shield bubble. If you're, say, for instance, inside the shield bubble, it doesn't. It somehow messes it up. Like it needs to go through the shields for it to work properly or more consistently.
Yeah, that does make sense actually, because yeah.
But it shouldn't work that way, right?
No,
it's pretty weird.
I mean, they did say it's an experimental piercing torpedo, so I guess we'll give them that.
It has a phase cloak, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Fenkar did a pretty good video on torpedo strategies. I think that was the Nuke the ISD Shield Gens video. Yeah. But even in that, he's in practice mode. And he's like, yeah, look at the torpedoes do variable damage, right, depending on the angle that you make the target lock. So it's a piercing torpedo, for instance, it's supposed to do 33% damage to a subsystem, but sometimes it's as little as like 15%. So that's just weird. In terms of balancing, I do think this adversely affects New Republic. New Republic is a little more torpedo dependent than the Empire. The TIE bomber has access to that really heavy rotary cannon, which the bombers can instantly overcharge. Y-wings aren't really reliant on their rotary cannon. Excuse me. They're using their standard cannons, right? So in order to deal damage quickly, the New Republic has to do more torpedo runs than the Empire. And
Or
when the
B-Way
torpedoes
bombing,
don't work properly, yeah. Well, I don't know how viable that is yet. But yeah, with the torpedoes not working consistently, and then in addition to them being more easily defended with your chaff and being able to shut down, it puts, to me, it's another reason why New Republic is at a bit of a disadvantage.
No, it's a great point. Now, something I was thinking about too, you being on the HOTUS, and from what I can tell too, from my experience so far, you can maximize power too with like the HOTUS, whereas on console, whereas controllers can't maximize it.
That is correct. So I have the ability on console to maximize power using advanced. So when I talk about maximizing power, I mean using advanced power management. So the default way advanced power management works is that you can add little pips to each system one at a time, but most players agree that's not very efficient. So you can bind maximum power, which will instantly fill up whatever system you select. And then you can kind of shuffle between 8 little blips, 4 blips, and 0 blips pretty quickly. So you cannot do this. You cannot bind maximize power, just like you can't maximize boost and drift on separate buttons using console, a regular console controller. The exception for console players is if they use the T-Flight HOTUS.
Yeah, and I honestly don't even, because I've been on console controller all year, I don't even understand the advanced how it works or whatever. Someone's explaining that you kind of have to hit 2 buttons at once while you do it, or I was like, what? I didn't even get it. It was like,
right. I'm probably not great at explaining it myself, but it basically allows you to keep one system fully overcharged and then another system at half power.
Right.
So for instance, if you want to be building up boost and making your escape, you can have full power on your engines, and then you can have half power in shields and recharge your shields to the default value.
Yeah.
Whereas with basic power management, you have 2 pips and the 2 systems that you're not overcharging, which is pretty useless.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, if I want to recharge my engines, I'm skipping, and it's all in engines, basically, or it's all in shields rather. And I'm skipping away. So yeah, it's basically you kind of have to play a different way on console controller and think a little bit differently to, recharge your systems basically that way. That's kind of funny.
Right, and it's not a huge advantage over basic power management, and I didn't switch to advanced power management until a couple of months ago. But I do find it useful, for instance, if I'm typically a PK role.
Yeah.
Right, so I like having full power in my engines and half power in weapons a lot of the time. And that keeps my maneuverability up, and then it makes it so my guns don't dry up too quickly.
And so, from what I understand, an issue like this with the advanced power management being only for, PC or in some cases console players, it creates another thing where there's a pretty advanced tech that a lot of competitive players are using, the shield skipping, which could actually, this is also creating another imbalance right here because of it.
Right, yeah, and that's a good segue. So shield skipping, so the way the shields work on a starfighter is that as you're taking fire, there is a recharge delay. So as you're taking fire, your shields will not recharge. It'll just keep depleting. When you stop taking fire, there's supposed to be a couple of seconds before your shields recharge. If you're using advanced power management, you can basically bypass the recharge delay by making sure all your power is out of shields and then dumping it back into shields. And as soon as you dump your power back into shields, it'll start regenning. Now, console players using or anyone using advanced or basic power management can't do this because as long as you have those 2 pips and shields, you can't use the shield skipping technique. And so this is why we see more scrambler shields nowadays. So players using scrambler shield can bypass that. It's supposed to be, I think, a 200% delay in the shield recharge.
Yeah.
And you can just bypass that using advanced power management.
Yeah, so it's another one of those ones that's just kind of creating that discrepancy. I mean, none of these by themselves seem to be, except multi-drift kind of seemed like the biggest one that was oh my god, but none of these seem that bad on their own. But then when you kind of compile them all together, then you sort of see, yeah, PC players do have sort of it's not a level playing field, I think, when you really look at it that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
And I mean, it's still, like you said, you can still compete but maybe there's a ceiling sort of for it.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, I think good strategy, practice, will ultimately win the day. But yeah, there is a ceiling. And you see all the top teams, using shield skipping, using multi-drift. You're not going to see any team in the top 6 or 8, not using these.
Yeah, and I mean, there's other issues kind of like I'm kind of going to combine a few of these ones, like the torpedo issue, like the issue here where players can hide in the shield generator, the nest there. I mean, the indestructible turret mine, that one's kind of annoying because, like, that's a thing that they added into the game, like, in whatever, a little bit later, and they've never worked completely properly. They've been able to go into entities on the map, as you said earlier, geometry, right. And there's also just a thing where you can deploy one and then it just will randomly be unkillable. So there's just a lot of issues with them. And then the most recent one, which isn't that bad at all, there's just slight holes in the shields, actually, of the Raider Corvette, which was a little interesting that you can kind of shoot through. Yeah,
and you did a really good breakdown of that, which is, and it's not the worst bug in the world, but you're right. When you take all these little things and as a complete picture, you're like, it really adds up. Thankfully, things like the indestructible turrets, that is banned in, I think, pretty much all the competitive tournaments, and that's pretty easy to spot. It's black and white.
I mean, the one. So where do we really see them? I think someone did a video too, actually, about. I actually haven't watched it. I think it was Area did it. I think on the. Shoot, I should watch that one about. This is why turrets are banned, and I think they are doing like crazy damage. And
was that the friendly fire turrets?
They may have been, yeah.
I think the video was, and actually I think she asked that I include it. And I think I forgot it from this master list. Come to think of it, but you can basically when you're deploying the turrets, if one of your own ships gets in the way, it'll instantly destroy it.
That's right. Yeah, it does. Yeah, you can. And that's the same thing. So a big... Sorry, I was kind of... I wanted to use the rocket turrets for Cal Cup Winter Major before they were banned. They were still allowed, but you could forfeit a game if those things happened. I was really good at using them and not putting them into geometry. So basically the only thing that I was worried about is if at one spawn that just couldn't be killed. But it seemed to me that it was only the laser turrets that did it, not the rocket turrets. So I wanted to use them defensively on the ISD specifically, just put them between the shield gens. This is when torp runs were really popular still too, so it would help shut them down. And it was a risk. Yeah, I wish I kind of had done it because I do think that they were pretty. I think there's a strat there that could work with those rocket turrets, to be honest, defensively.
Yeah, and mine's the turrets are really annoying, right? And I know the meta has been pretty much, it was mask and beacons, and now with masks being nerfed, it's beacons and resupply droids. But certainly, yeah, you're taking away a huge tool that the support chip potentially has, right? And I think it takes away from some interesting strategies. For instance, if you had a laser turret out in the field, that makes it hard for players, even using the shield skipping exploit, to shield skip because they're constantly being pinged by the turret.
I mean, that's a big thing too. The more I've been messing around, like with the shun charging and stuff, like the biggest danger is in a lot of ways like the capital ship, X-wings, and those turrets to you. Like it's a lot easier for them to do damage, especially if you're just like riding it to like 20 hull, 10 hull, or whatever until you pull out. They can hit you with a couple shots and just finish you off so quick, so much faster than a player almost. It's crazy.
What?
Oh shoot, did you cut out there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought I just cut out.
That's okay.
Yeah, so then I think we're looking at some other ones too. Yeah, you'd mentioned this one, the Resident... Oh no, this is different. The Resident shield on the B-Wing doesn't rapidly recharge as intended.
Yeah, so actually if you run the Resident shield on the B-Wing, it actually really slowly charges your lasers, which is really not good. So the B-Wing is in need of some love. We'll get into balancing stuff later, but yeah, there's almost no point in running the Resonant Shield with the way it works right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunately though. I think
on the B-Wing, that is.
Yeah, it's been that way since the B-Wing was out, I believe. Too. The B-Wing had some issues right from the go. They did sort out mostly, but yeah, a couple others left over still.
Right.
This one's interesting to me as well. The inability to turn off indicators for ships that are masked or marked when in spectator mode, because this does actually make a pretty big difference, I think, in the production of the esports and the events. Like having it would be nice if that stuff could be clear to give these really cinematic looking angles.
Right. And thankfully you see a little bit less of this with the mask kind of falling out of favor since that nerf. But yeah, when we get these great camera angles sometimes when the Cal Cup is being broadcast. I think it's Arier. Am I saying it right? Arier
Yep.
Witch
I think so.
from Night Witches. I don't know how to
Let's
pronounce
say
some
yes.
things I read on the internet.
Please correct us,
Yeah.
Arier, and we'll adjust if we're incorrect there.
Right. Fantastic cinematic camera angles, right?
So good.
But then, we're tracking these little nimble starfighters tracking around, and all of a sudden the reflect hull is in effect, or the mask is in effect, and there's this giant graphic eyeball covering the starfighter, and you can't really see what's going on. And the targeting beacon icon will also appear as a giant red circle. And what's funny is that it doesn't seem to be scaled down to how zoomed out it is, so it'll just be this giant red circle, this giant eyeball.
It's kind of over. Takes too much real estate on it when it is like that. Yeah, so it does. I mean, that would be nice to sort out, just to make. I mean, honestly, this game is so cinematic looking. Like for an esport, it would be amazing if that kind of just to make it be as gorgeous an esport as it deserves to be.
Right. I agree with that. So I don't know if that's a bug per se, but it should be. We should have the ability to remove that, especially because there is a lot of potential in this as an esport, and it would really help the production of these tournaments.
And there is that little issue where you go into the hangar and you have audio change, or you are in a weird black screen. I had this weird acid trip looking thing where my Grogu was still there. It was like the desktop. It was like the desktop starting screen, but then Grogu was there, and I could see some things. It was like the black screen, but with it was really funny. And also, I had one where my for one round my vibration was just off. That was so weird.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of weird visual glitches, right? So I play on PlayStation VR, and sometimes if I pull a hard enough drift in my A-wing, it's like my head will come out of the cockpit, and I'll just get a completely black screen. Yeah. Which is really strange and very disorienting. And then all of a sudden, oh hey, there's a rock, and you smash into it. So this is a game. Sqaudrons is a very, very fast game, and so losing even half a second of your screen it can be the difference between life and death in the game.
So all the difference too when you're in VR and you got that extra field of view, you want to be able to use it.
Right. I think someone said in my Reddit post actually, like, oh, I just like to pretend my pilot is blacking out from the G-forces. I'm like, okay.
Which I mean,
I still don't think
that is fun. Blacking out, that is hilarious. Actually,
that's too much immersion for me. But
to give like Motive credit, there was a lot of issues of off the bat over release that they did kind of fix with different VR support and HOTAS support.
Yes.
So you got to give them credit too for all these things. So it's not. I mean, they did so much more above and beyond what they said they would. So I do thank them. You know what I mean? Like that's. I mean, I think we're kind of getting into the end now because we kind of did talk about. Boost gasping, boost skipping, and shunt charging. I feel like we kind of talked about along the way.
I think we missed the thing about the hull damage discrepancy on the MC75
let's go back to that one.
and ISD.
You're right. We did. Let's talk about that one.
Yeah, this was something that was recently discovered. I think it was Heresy might have discovered, or at least he did the videos on it. So basically, it turns out that if you destroy the targeting system on the MC75, that's worth about 9% of its hull integrity. Whereas if you do the same thing on the Star Destroyer, it doesn't take any hull integrity, or maybe it's just about 1 or 2%.
Isn't it? It might be inconsistent or something as well, if I'm not mistaken.
You could be right, but I think it's only on the targeting system though. It does not apply to the other.
I'm sorry. What is inconsistent is the amount of damage that is done when targeting is destroyed. People can't get a straight answer on what that amount is. Sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I think it comes out to about 9%, but I could be wrong. But, a lot of people will tell you that the MC75 is a lot easier to attack than the Star Destroyer, just because of its shape and the location of the subsystems, particularly the shield gens. Yeah. So that's just yet another disadvantage of the New Republic, having to defend this poor MC75.
Like the reverse would make so much more sense for balancing if you had the Empire with this high output ships, but it was harder to get to the subsystems to do the damage. That would make more sense rather than easy to reach subsystems with high damage. Yeah.
Yeah, and so going back to boost gasping, boost skipping, shunt charging. So I left those three at the end because I figured including those as quote unquote bugs or exploits would be pretty controversial. And I kind of go back and forth in my own head about them too.
Yeah.
So let's start with the easiest one. I think shunt charging. To me, it seems pretty clear that the devs did not intend for Empire ships to be able to constantly have maximum power at their command. Something seems kind of screwy there, and I think most players would agree that some kind of penalty when you're shunting the powers. Lost my tongue there. Shunting between the two different systems, there should be some kind of penalty, and that's something that couldn't be added without a full patch.
Oh, that's good. So that was one of the earliest videos that I actually watched on Sqaudrons. Once it was released, I can't remember who made it, but it was a pretty short 1 to 2 minute video about the plasburst gun and how with Empire ships you could quickly charge it up and then shunt back and forth. And I watched this video probably 10 times and I did not understand what he was talking about. But now I'm like, wow, that guy, I mean, people did play that way. The plasburst was nerfed at a certain point, but I feel like we didn't understand how you could use that technology in all the ships, basically, right? Like to fly around all the time like that. It's so...
And that's basically because the plasburst recharges the fastest.
That's right.
And
yeah. And
as long as you fully charge that plasburst laser, then that means as soon as you hit that shunt button, you got full boost too.
Yeah, but I mean, with the standard laser on the TIE fighter, you don't even need to fully overcharge. You can half, and you get a full boost bar. Like, you know what I mean? It's even crazier with these. Like, well, really?
Right, and that seems weird. But that's just me.
I mean, you're right. It probably shouldn't be the way. But unfortunately, I guess that's the reality of it with the TIE fighter and the TIE bomber. And this has to do with why the TIE bomber and the TIE fighter are so strong. I mean, someone kind of mentioned the other day, people were like, TIE fighter strong? It's like, yeah, the TIE fighter is strong. It's just that the TIE bomber is so strong that there's no need to fly the TIE fighter as much. But yeah, if the TIE bomber is one nerf away from the TIE fighter is one TIE bomber nerf away from being the best ship on the Empire now. Maybe.
Right. I would agree with that. Yeah. It's kind of a sleeper, and if we get that TIE bomber nerf that most people want, and by nerf, I think we all agree it needs a nerf to its reinforced hull.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot more TIE fighters in action.
Mm-hmm. So boost skipping is basically doing. We used to call it like a micro drift, kind of, when you like boost and then do a quick little drift. It's basically successive boost, drift, like quickly like that, while you have your energy in another system that you're charging.
Right, and so I probably didn't do a great job of explaining this one in the original Reddit post, but it's not. I said it allows players to rapidly boost drift across the map,
which is true. It does, because it's the quickest way to move across the map. If you were to just do, it's boosting straight versus boost drift. Right,
but it's actually not just that. It allows, because when you do it right, you're putting your power into a different system.
That's correct. Yes.
So you're charging the lasers or the shields while rapidly moving across the map.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, you mentioned before, we ought to give the devs a lot of credit. I agree with that. And I made sure to give them some love in the opening letter part of the post, because they said from the outset we were not getting long-term support with this game. But then they went ahead and added the extra map. They added the B-Wing and the TIE Defender. And we're still getting these ongoing balance patches. Right? And so one of the things they did recently, I think it was in March, they gave a large nerf to the boost activation cost for most of the ships in the game. I think it was 60%. So before that, it was basically boost skipping was one of the more efficient ways to scoot across the map. So you just boost drift, and then while you're doing that, not only are you moving across the map really quickly, but you're overcharging a different system. With that nerf, though, it doesn't necessarily make it the best way to travel across the map, but it is still good for getting out of a jam.
It's true. I mean, I did a video too on the B-Wings movement, and it's better boosting than it is skipping, which blew my mind. And it feels so weird to travel that way now after skipping everywhere for so long.
Right. Now, and then you get boost gasping, which is pretty much the next step of boost skipping, right? So you basically do a boost skip, and then boost gasping is putting your after you complete the drift, you put your power back into the engines,
Mm-hmm.
and then you recharge your boost that way.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're treading water. Whereas I think the devs intended for your boost to be this finite resource. If you use it over and over again, you're going to run out.
Yeah.
Boost gasping kind of allows you to keep treading water with your boost meter and kind of perpetually keep boost in your tank. And here's one that I think was pretty controversial. A lot of players would argue, and I think they have good arguments, that boost gasping is just really good power management. Ultimately, though, I don't think that's what the devs intended. I'm not going to speak for the devs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there was a full patch, I think they would look at trying to nerf that somehow.
When I look, okay, so I think, I don't know. I've been working on my boost gasping a lot lately, so I've kind of gotten better at it. But I've never really. The Defender is so easy, not easy, much easier to boost gasp in than the X-Wing. The X-Wing is tough. You got to kind of go boost gasp, and then you'll run out, and you kind of got to recharge it a bit or at a different speed, and then go back. And I mean, for me anyway, maybe other people are better at it, but it seems like the Defender, you can almost perpetually. You're always boost gasping. That's the only movement that you will be using in it.
Yeah, and it would, we'll get into balance stuff later, but the Defender is also the easiest ship to boost skip in. So if you want to learn these techniques, like the ship to start in is the Defender, because it's the easiest to do. Although the X-Wing is a close second with the jet engine, which allows you to boost gasp pretty efficiently.
I mean, very efficiently. I feel like you've seen randos play. You see how well they use it. To Vanguard, different people. I mean, for me, I feel like I've got to go kind of. I can't perpetually. I don't think most people can perpetually generate boost by boost gasping. They do kind of have to go in and out. It's just how long you can maintain it for, I think.
Yeah, and again, with that 60% boost activation.
Sorry, I should clarify. In the X-Wing. The Defender, I think they can almost perpetually create it, yeah.
Right. They did make boost gasping a little less efficient, right, with that nerf that we got in March. And I was really reluctant to learn it because I think it's a really silly mechanic, and that's just my personal opinion. But I have learned it. I wouldn't say I'm the best boost gasper in the world, but in using something like the A-Wing, which I think was really hit hard by that boost activation nerf, I have to boost gas if I want to make it out alive.
Right. And it's actually one of the hardest to boost gasp in, is from what I understand, the A-Wing.
Right, because the engine, the boost recharge rate is really slow and doesn't have access to that jet engine or the TIE Defender's, silly quick boost recharge.
So I think now too. Okay, so there's kind of get into my thoughts here about. So when we come into a client-side patch, this is my concern. If we did, let's say they did fix all of these things. I think it would just kind of be like, it would create all these other issues. That would be my fear anyway. So then you've got a game, like, you know what I mean? You go in, you fix all these things, but by doing so, you then create these new issues that are...
Right. And honestly, that's a fear of mine too, right?
Yeah.
But, somebody will find something else that breaks the game.
Yes.
Down the line, right? Or quote unquote breaks the game. The counter argument is that the game has been around for a good 6-7 months now,
which is crazy. It feels like it's been about 6-7 years almost in some ways, but yeah, 6-7 months go on. Sorry.
Right, you got a lot of people that poured a lot of hours into this game, and it'd be hard pressed to imagine, and let me not jinx it, but imagine anything worse than like multi-drifting coming out.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure there might be something with a component that somebody will exploit, but down the line. But I don't think that means that EA shouldn't try, or that we shouldn't try to get this patch, because I think most players agree on most of these points that they should be fixed.
I feel like there's so many. So from my perspective, all the buggy stuff 100% needs to be fixed. I mean, multi-drift, if they can fix that in some way, 100% fix that. Some of the stuff like gasping, skipping, shunt charging, shield skipping to a degree, I feel like I would rather stick with the monsters I know stick with the devil you know than the devil you don't. It's not the I don't know that express. Something like that degree where I like knowing what these are the issues. I would rather have them than see what these new issues will be. That's my kind of perspective on it.
agree with that actually. And I use all three of these tactics with the
Mhm.
boost skipping, gasping, and charging. And I know anecdotally I've heard some people say like I don't want to feel like I have to boost gas in order to be competitive,
Mhm.
and I'm kind of done with the game or whatever. But to me, it doesn't make the game significantly less fun. I mean, I don't think boost gassing is particularly fun, but
Mhm.
they're not game breaking for me. I just think I included those things because I think if there was going to be another full patch, I think that it would be something that the devs should look at. But I completely agree that something like multi-drift or the under throttle boost or the zero
Mhm.
throttle boost
Yes.
needs to be fixed 100%. And if we had to pick two, those would be the two
those
that
would
I
be
would
the two.
pick.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
And I mean, even shield skipping sucks or whatever, but yeah, it is what it is for that one.
Right.
I would wonder. It's because too the problem is like we were saying, the boost gassing, the skipping, and the shunt charging kind of leads to that's what pinballing is using those techniques. So I think you could affect that in a lot of ways by client side patches, and specifically for adjusting boost gasping. Some sort of boost activation cost, increasing that, boost acceleration, lowering that across all ships. Because I think that was like what was the nerf to the boost gasping that they put across all ships basically.
Well, it's the activate. So they increased the penalty for the boost activation cost.
Yes.
Right. So it used to be with boost gasping that you could pretty much indefinitely keep your boost meter above water.
Yeah.
And now eventually, even with perfect technique, you can only tread water, so to speak, or eventually you'll run out.
Yeah.
So, I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay.
but I at this point I wouldn't be. I would be shocked if the devs would take another huge hit to boosting like that, because the boosting and drifting mechanics are pretty core to the identity of this game, right? And it's a pretty fun mechanic in practice, right? Because it breaks. They put it in there because they didn't want to have another game where you have circle fights.
Yeah.
Right. And it does create a lot of skill potential, right? A lot of flight mastery that you otherwise wouldn't have.
But it's almost gone the other way, where like when you're playing some good people, some really like if you're one-on-one with a good player, you kind of do end up in these weird circle fights. Though you're like trying to J-hook each other and stuff. Like it kind of
that's true.
It kind of went back that way in some yeah, because you're just like boost drift around, boost drift around, boost drift around.
Well, it's like you're taking pentagon fights instead of circle fights, right?
Yeah.
But what's cool about the boosting and drifting though is that with the way you do, you can spin your ship around and return fire on your attacker instead of it feeling like you're both on a hamster wheel.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So,
what
would you like to see then in a server side patch?
So by that you mean just like balancing passes?
Yes, I do mean that balance patch for ships. Yes.
Okay, so I have thoughts on that. So I think the TIE bomber needs to be looked at first and foremost, and a lot of energy, rightfully so, has been focused on the TIE defender. And I think the defender with the latest balance pass is pretty close to being okay. The bomber, though, has 3,300 health points with the reinforced hull. It is silly strong. It can have overcharged lasers. I think what do the rotary cannons do on the thing, like 800 DPS?
Yeah, something that
maximum.
Yeah,
something silly like that. And like I said earlier, even with the reinforced hull, with all the other boost shenanigans we talked about, it can pretty much bypass any maneuverability penalties it would have. So you got these tanky monsters that can pretty much take out your MC-75 shield gens in one pass. And it takes you 20 years to shoot it down. So I think a pretty modest nerf to the bomber is in order. I think what the base haul of it is like 2,200. I think of the TIE bomber, and
I thought it was higher, but let's say 2,200. It needs to drop. I think it was 4,000 at one point. I think when the game launched, I think it was 4,000. I thought it was 3,200, but I'm way off.
Well, I'm talking about the base hull. So the
Okay,
base hull
yeah, you're right.
on the standard hull is 2,200.
That
I
makes
think.
sense,
And
actually,
then
yeah.
with the reinforced hull, it jumps up to 3,300. So
Yeah.
that's like, maybe my math is bad, more than almost a 50% increase.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's obscene.
Yeah.
So compare that to the X-wing, which goes from 2,000 base to 2,700 base with the reinforced hull.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
So I think a nice nerf to the reinforced hull on the TIE bomber is in order. I would also like to see a nerf to its rotary lasers too.
You make a good point, because I thought the overall hull needed the nerf, but you're right. It might just be the reinforced hull itself. So just make it like whatever, maybe closer to the X-wing then, or maybe even just 3,000. I don't know, something like that. Putting in line, that's a great idea, and what I've seen lots of people say.
Right, because like 2,200 is fine, right? If you're using any one of the other hull types, it's pretty killable. I mean, but anybody that's in the comp scene or is remotely competitive is going to be running that reinforced hull. So I think if they just nerf the reinforced hull, that would be fine.
Yeah, and I think the defender as well could probably take another hit. They could just knock it back slightly. They could be. I mean, it's maybe in an okay place, and they wouldn't have to, but it's definitely something they could consider.
I agree with that. So I fly Defender mainly when I'm in Empire, and thankfully the devs have listened to the community feedback on that because they said it was not overperforming at the mid and lower levels; it was only at the high level. So good job on the high level community for making a lot of noise about it, because the Defender 1.0 was pretty much unkillable.
Yeah, it was crazy.
There was like you have a Defender bouncing around using that pinball movement, and no shit pinballs like the Defender. You're wasting your time killing it. Because it's so fast,
so dominant with those Defenders.
Right. So you got something that it has some of the strongest burst lasers in the game. Really, really tanky shields and almost unlimited boost. I still think it has the quickest boost recharge in the game. The lasers can be overcharged very, very quickly, and this huge Y-wing level shields.
And not to mention, people are using APS on it as well to quickly fill up. Wait, which one is it that people do? Because it regens the slowest. Shields regens the slowest. I think that's
shields. Yeah.
So the APS of shields too a lot.
Right, and so those were good nerfs that the devs made. So they've slowly nerfed the shields. So that the shields regenerate slowly. So in 1.0 Defenders, I was running fortified shield because the recharge rate was so quick. They've nerfed the shield regeneration rate on the Defender pretty considerably to where now it regenerates slower than the X-wing. So the regeneration rate, I would argue, is actually fine. It's just that it's still so tanky, and the Defender is the fastest ship in the game. With its boost speed, I forget what it is. It's something ridiculous, like 260, 280. I forget.
And it's just you have to knock the shields to kill a Defender, and the shields are beefy, so it's just kind of annoying. So you have to either ion it, beacon it, tractor beam it. Yeah, they're just like such specialized ways to kill a Defender. It's annoying.
Right. Well, so exactly, specialized ways, right? So you either have to run ion ordnance and hope that you hit it. The best way to kill it that the comp scene has found is having Y-wings run the automatic ion turret or the ICT, and then with targeting beacons, you can kill it. But that's coordination from two other ships, right? Just to one to beacon it from the support, the Y-wing running the ICT, and then another ship to kill it.
Yeah.
So that's coordination from three ships just to take out one class of fighter, which to me is kind of silly.
Yeah,
and then something that I don't think gets talked about. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Something that I don't think gets talked about enough is that, the ICT is an effective weapon against the Defender, right? But that is a lot of damage being sacrificed by the Y-wing. So that's either a multi-lock missile or a Goliath missile being given up on the farm. So it makes the Y-wing farm less efficient, and that's less DPS on offense.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like too much of a trade. Like, I mean, it should take a trade-off, I guess, but that's almost like too much of one. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
So I think about 20% nerf to the total shield points on the Defender would probably bring it to a pretty good spot.
And I think the other thing that I should mention is that Gonk has kind of made posts about it. I think it's that he thinks the boost acceleration is too high, and that'll fix the zero throttle issues, because if ships can't be accelerating so quickly, then that'll affect that zero throttle, though. You know what I mean? That'll negate it, I think.
Well, I don't think so because and I might be wrong about this. So like
Mhm.
they did nerf the boost acceleration on the Defender fairly recently,
Mm.
but you can bypass that as long as you use the zero throttle method.
So they still
So
need to fix the zero throttle to really fix that issue. That makes sense.
right. So yeah, so if you're flying at a Defender and you're already at top speed and then you boost, that acceleration was nerfed. But as long as you're under throttle boosting, you're still going to have that rapid pinball movement.
Mhm.
And so that's not going to get fixed unless they do the full patch.
That's unfortunate.
It Charlemagne did say in the main Discord that cannot be done just server side.
All right. Well, shot through the heart on that one.
So let's hope for this patch, guys.
But the other thing too, actually, the last one that I think really needs some love is the A-Wing, which I'm gonna assume you used to play some A-Wing, maybe playing it less now.
No, I'm stubborn and I'm sticking to my A-Wing because I'm the A-Wing main that you parodied so brilliantly in one of your YouTube videos. I realized I was like, wait a minute, let me look at my New Republic versus Empire dogfight time. Oh God, that's me. I'm in VR, so I love that glass canopy on the A-Wing. It's still really fun to me. But yeah, the A-Wing was probably the most adversely affected by that boost activation nerf back in March.
Right.
So before you could kind of boost skip around to keep yourself alive and overcharge the system. But now it just runs out of gas really, really, really quickly. So if you want to stay alive, you got to keep your power on engines, but then that means that you're usually out of laser juice pretty quick. And, with these aforementioned tanky Empire targets, the A-Wing just finds itself out of lasers really, really quickly, especially on the standard lasers. The devs have nerfed the A-Wing pretty hard over the course of the game. You could argue that the rocket nerf, when they nerfed the barrage rockets from 100 DPS to 60 DPS, was indirectly aimed at the A-Wing.
I think so. A lot of people thought they should have just lowered the amount
ammo capacity?
The capacity rather than the DPS.
Yeah. Actually, I argued that too with my squad mates.
So
yeah. But then they made all these shield nerfs. So they, I believed, they reduced the overall shield health pool from 500 to 400. They reduced they slowed the charging rate by a third. So now the shields regenerate slower than the X-Wing on the A-Wing. And then they also increased the overcharged shield decay, which I don't think is a change anyone asked for. So if you overcharge your shields on the A-Wing, nowadays it decays faster.
I don't know. That's a big nerf. I think they said that there was a real discrepancy on the low level, that people would just get smoked. The A-Wing was dominant there. I think they wanted to fix that. I think that was the reason for it across the board, basically doing all those hits.
Yeah, but they have better numbers and data than I am, and I'm biased because I'm playing at my level, and I love the A-Wing, so I got my biases right. But to me, it's kind of a weird consideration, right? Like, to look at it from, to me, you want to balance the game from the top down.
Yeah.
Right. Like people at say the Maverick level or the Hotshot level, I mean, they're flying in straight lines. They don't really know how to play the game.
Yeah.
So not to be mean, but people are learning at that level, right? So I don't know if you want to be basing too much of your balancing decisions based on what lower level players who don't really know the game that well.
Yeah, I guess their thinking was that they just want people who are starting the game to not have a bad time, I guess, or to have a better, have an enjoyable experience to start the game, so that there could be more player retention. Especially at the time that they did nerf the A-Wing was right before it was coming to Game Pass, so maybe they were thinking about that new player base that could be incoming.
Right, and the A-Wing is a choice player for choice ship for new players, right? And certainly the A-Wing was way overpowered, and particularly before they fixed the that really bad bug. And let's give credit to the devs for fixing that, when the laser tethering or the laser auto aim would break whenever a shift was in drift.
Oh, so the dead drift, really, yeah. Oh man, feels like years ago. I realized when that dead drift was patched, I was dead drifting all the time. Like, I was such a dead drifter for sure. I was like, right. Oh, I have to barrel roll again and stuff here. Oh my god.
Right. So that made it so anyone who is in a drift could not be like hit by the lasers
Yeah,
very easily. It was almost as if they were running the targeting jammer for a second, right?
There's a lot of frames of invulnerability where you just could not be hit.
So the A-wing was way overpowered then. I feel like I don't mind its shield pool being reduced. What I would like to see is just some pretty. It's close to being good. To me, it's not bad. It just needs a little bit of love in terms of maybe the shield regeneration rate and an increase to its laser recharge rate. I do think you see it falling out of favor in the high level meta. You see a lot of top players not using the A-wing anymore like they used to. Like Avenger 1 was running an X-wing instead of an A-wing. CA Knight on the CA Gold was running an X-wing.
Heard Scalp's moving a little bit more to
right. I see him flying an X-wing recently on his Twitch stream. So I'm like, the poor A-wing is losing its place in the high level meta.
And that's the thing, too. In Charlemagne's post, he didn't even promise that they're going to do it. And he says he's pushing for it, which I think kind of to bring it all around is why this post that you made is kind of like, I think, important to get it in there to like. I mean, they're gonna see this at least. It's gonna get to them if there's an overwhelming amount of people putting in a ticket. It's gonna show that there is some concern, and it kind of comes around to now. This is the absolute Hail Mary of Hail Marys that I don't know if they realize or would want, but there's definitely a core group that loves this game that would be willing to pay whatever $5 a month, that would actually pay to support this game. I don't know if it's enough that they would respond to that, but there is definitely a core group that is willing to support that.
I 100% agree with that, and I would happily pay for some kind of monthly fee for ongoing support for the game, right? This game, they did market it from the start as like, this is a $40 game, it's budget, it's going to have limited support, but it's really ripe for new maps and new components, new game modes, which would be what I expect if I'm paying something monthly, right? But
I mean, even from my perspective, they could have done it so simply, like just every cosmetic that they put out, if they had made 10 color variations on them and made them each one that you had to buy with glory, that would make people who wanted that specific color for their squad or whatever just play a little bit more to get enough glory to get that, and then they could have released those, whatever. If there's 10 variations on each one, then that's 10 days of releases. If they had one release, that kind of stuff, right? Like that would have put them 3 years of content, like in a path like that, sort of. I could see
absolutely. And personally, I would happily pay for cosmetics, right, if it would help support the game. My wife wouldn't be happy with why you're spending fake money on fake video game items, right? But I definitely understand why EA shied away from any kind of paid anything because of what happened with Battlefront 2, with the devs of that game being accused of implementing pay to win, right? So they're very, very shy, I'm sure, about putting paid anything into Sqaudrons. But I think you're right that the majority of the player base would support some kind of either monthly fee or like paid cosmetics or something like that.
Yeah, it's like EA's like, no, you know what? We won't take your money. You can't even send it to us. It's like, no, we'll pay you. We'll do it, EA. No, it's just kind of funny. It's like the complete opposite, where everyone was so upset at EA for the Battlefront debacle, but then
you got people begging like, EA, please take my money. I remember there was a Reddit post like a couple of months ago, like, how can I financially support this game? Should I just buy another copy? Should I just gift a copy to a friend? Like,
I've seen people do like, should we do a Kickstarter, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, could we something like that just to show? I don't know what the answer is.
Right. I don't know.
I feel like our best hope is to just, unfortunately, as of May the 4th, when the last cosmetic drop, it's not sunset, but it's a long sunset at least, but the game is kind of on its way, there forward.
Right. And to that point, right, like, in terms of considering balance changes, I do think it's going to be the comp scene, the quote unquote high level players that are going to keep this game going.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like we got that massive influx of players we were all hoping for when it came to EA Play. I think Battlefront got 17 million new players. I don't think that really manifested in Sqaudrons. So
I mean, they're not releasing any numbers, so they're probably not that crazy. They are what they are. You could see a bump in the Steam charts a little bit, but yeah, it's tough to say too. It's such a mix of who knows how many console players are playing. It's tough to say.
Right. So you got people like me. Like I listed all the Star Wars and other sci-fi games I've played, right? So I'm going to be playing this game for a long time. I've been waiting for a game like this for years and years, because there hasn't been. I mean, Rogue Squadron was fun, but there hasn't been something with this kind of depth in the mechanics and in gameplay since the PC games, X-Wing Alliance, which was when they come out 2003. So the space sim genre kind of died out altogether. It used to be you can buy space sims all the time. All those great Star Trek games I talk about, they don't make Star Trek games like that anymore. They don't make Wing Commander games anymore. They don't make Colony Wars. So this is a throwback game from a bygone era.
I knew Eve and Star Citizen basically were the only other ones that I really knew about, which were kind of popular games. And yeah, this should be the most popular of them. So I don't know. Well, leaving off, what would you say to everyone to send in that form, fill it out? What else would you what would you like to leave everyone with here?
Yeah. So it's the post is called A Long Shot. Let's petition EA or let's pressure EA for a full client side patch. Like I said, I fully acknowledge it's a long shot, but I think it's still floating around on the front page. So I created a template, like Time Bomb said, that makes it easy. You can feel free to exclude or reword things as much as you want. And I give a link to the form for EA's customer feedback. And all you got to do is copy and paste that in and put your email address in, and they'll get the feedback. One thing I would like feedback from on a community is is there a better way we can do this? I mean, ideally, we'd have some EA executives' email address. I don't have access to that kind of information, but maybe the next step is, pinging them on Twitter. It could be, actual letters. I don't know. Does anyone send letters anymore?
Faxes.
But right, yeah,
that
send some
seems
faxes in. But yeah, just take a couple of minutes, check out the post. Like I said, read it over, see what you agree with, see what you don't, and take a couple of minutes to submit your form.
And much appreciated if anyone else out there does that. You know what? I implore you to do that. Not just appreciate, implore it that you go and do that. Just to do what we can here.
Agreed.
Are you streaming or anything else as well?
No, I don't stream. Like I said, I play on PlayStation VR, and that's not a good viewing experience.
It's a little funny when you see those ones, but it's always interesting to see it as well.
Right, I might try it one day. I do have a Twitch account, and I follow a bunch of other people, but nope, just me. I'm REIGN1701A on Reddit and on in-game. That's my EA ID, so it's pretty consistent everywhere. So
awesome.
Hit me up if you want to play.
Nice. We'll see you in the skies out there. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, buddy. It was great having you on and talking with you.
Thank you for having me on Time Bomb. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you everyone for listening. We will catch you next time on the Star Wars Squadrons podcast.
I want to scanner control.